I feel like we are already failing Gen Alpha because right now we are just continuing the same toxic generational blaming cycle that has poisoned all generations before them as well. And I don't want to make this just about Gen Alpha or about, all the stuff going on with the iPad kids. It's about how we as a society are mistreating our youth and setting them up to be just as broken and mad as us. Think about it. We spend our time complaining about them like adults always have, headlines cycling through the same talking points about attention span and discipline and whatnot, overusing technology, as if any of that happened and appeared out of nowhere. We blame them for authentically reacting to the environment they have been put in. They're growing up in an environment that even fully grown adults are barely coping with. But instead of preparing them for that, we overwhelm them with memorizing information that barely connects to the world they're actually entering. And they spend years learning how to pass tests, how to sit still, how to repeat things back correctly, how not to question what they're being told to do, the system that they're being put through, and they're basically forced or expected to ignore their own humanness as long as necessary until they forget it themselves. We expect them to bring positive change in the future, but we treat them as if they've already failed. And that's because we have been brainwashed as well. Right? The system doesn't want change, so it doesn't equip them to understand it, right? It keeps them busy with things that don't matter, constantly measured against each other, but they're not taught how the structure itself functions, right? And they're basically punished anytime they question said structure. And then when they grow up confused or overwhelmed by forces they were never properly introduced to, we act like that confusion is their personal failure. Because most of us still don't see anything wrong with the highly outdated and inhumane systems and conditions and traditions that we're forcing our children into to this day. That's why every generation gets its own tagline, right? Millennials are lazy, Gen Z is entitled, and Gen Alpha is doomed. We have a new scapegoat to blame, and the cycle continues with each defeated generation getting influenced to slander and judge the generations after them. Because that is the path of least resistance to us and our governments. Because this way, we don't have to question why everyone is complaining that their Gen Alpha kid has no attention span and is brain rotting in real time, because all they do is be on their phones. And I get it, because what else are they gonna do? Seriously, like, what are they actually gonna do? Childhood, as most of us remember, is dead. Malls are closed, playgrounds are old and empty. Like, more than ever, life happens online now. And I can totally see how you would prefer that space. Because, they can actually find meaning or friends or entertainment or just distraction there. Right? They can be somewhat more free than in real life. And when a kid chooses distraction, we treat it like it's a moral failure, like they've chosen defeat, like they're weak. But I think at this point, social media or the internet in general is pretty much the only place where they can find a semblance of autonomy. A place where there's actually room to express themselves or just, plain and simply escape the constant pressure and expectations that are put on them, right? As if we are not doing the exact same, by the way. And instead of thinking about why this happens, we invent a new panic, right? Now it's the gentle parenting epidemic. As if the reason kids are checking out is because we stopped scaring them enough. As if respect ruined them. No, dude, it's because they don't care about everyone around them trying to gaslight their experiences and preparing them for the capitalism meat grinder. And we still think controlling them and beating them into submission is secure to that. But you're not raising your child, you're teaching your child to abandon themselves, and they're gonna resent you for that forever if they ever wake up again. And again, it's ultimately just the same old bullshit of people still believing that treating their children with disrespect, forced roles, authoritarian family dynamics, etc., is anything more than beating someone into obedience, right? That obedience is not real. It's not. They're just playing it up for you. But these children resent you and everything around them already. And we can think of what might be the underlying reason why children struggle so much. Because still, our society lacks any sympathy and empathy, even for children. We don't have time to tend to their humanness. We need them to shut the hell up, get their asses to school, while we are stuck at our jobs ourselves. And if things don't change, Gen Alpha will also be held down by the same chains that we are wearing. And that's because most people have forgotten that at some point, when they were still young, they didn't wear these chains. And they saw everyone else wear them. And maybe they even said to themselves, I'm not gonna be like that when I'm growing up. And then look at them now, thinking kids are giving them a hard time. Well, that's because they have forgotten that children and teenagers are not just giving us a hard time, they are having a hard time. And usually they have zero help or understanding to help them through that. They are not lazy, they are overwhelmed and confused. The difference being, they don't hide it as well as the adults. And they don't readily accept that this corporate capitalism, consumerism system is going to be their ultimate fate yet. Kids naturally come with this unaltered view on life, with this stubborn sense that things don't have to stay the way that they are, and that quality is threatening if you've already made your peace with the status quo. If you're convinced yourself that nothing really changes anyway, that this is just how life works, watching someone younger still believe in something different can feel naive at best and threatening at worst. Right? And it's easier to call them delusional than to sit with the possibility that you gave up somewhere along the way. It's easier to try and conform them because we tell ourselves it's safer that way. And I think that there is a kind of envy mixed into this whole thing as well. Maybe envy of the fact that they still have some spark left, some willingness to question, some willingness to rebel. And instead of protecting that, we ourselves silence them. We are basically the slaves that don't want an uprising because we don't think we could ever win. And we don't want our kids to be caught in the crossfire. So we slowly shrink them to fit into the same box that shrunk us. So while they are being put through the ringer by the governmental brainwashing conveyor belt, we watch them grow more anxious as it starts to dawn on them what kind of world they are growing up into. But there is no help or guidance coming for them. Just the old news articles and people online making fun of how the next generation of people is trying to cope with the hellhole we are pushing them into. And it becomes an individualized problem again. If they're struggling, it's them being soft. If they're disengaged, it's because they're lazy and screen addicted. If they're angry, it's because they're immature. And we definitely weren't that way back then, so they all suck. And the new generation is hopeless anyway. And we shouldn't take any of that serious because after all, they're just dumb children. And that framing keeps the system intact because it keeps attention away from the structure itself.